This is the Tapped In Podcast, the podcast for beverage distributors that want to empower their sales team to drive business results. Well, listen up. Welcome to the Tapped In Podcast, your podcast for beer distributors. Thanks for letting us indulge you this morning with a little bit of travel woes. So today I'm here with Mikey.
Hey.
We're back from an on-site. We were traveling back today. Or actually traveling back yesterday, so we both had longer travel days, although Mikey's was much shorter than mine. So good. So that was good. So our plan today, Mike, you wanted to talk about anything you eat that was good this week?
Not necessarily over the top good. I found some pretty interesting restaurant names, I guess. They got pretty creative with the names of the restaurants. So I had lunch at Whiskey Dick's, which was one of them.
There you go.
I did notice that there was, I was on a lake, so it was the Bass Hole. I think one of them was the Little Bass Hole, and then there was a Big Bass Hole. There was also an Ash Bowl restaurant and the Wet Spot restaurant. So I found it really interesting that, although I didn't really have any over-the-top great food, but they got pretty creative with their names.
I went to a place called Johnny's, and
Okay.
I went to a place called Johnny's, and that was delightful. I also saw this. I was in a store and I'd never, ever seen this before. I thought this was crazy. What we're looking at here is I was in an account making a visit, and they had these cocktails that they had taken.
Wow.
They had single serve 12-ounce cans of soda with little mini bottles, 50 mLs of booze. And then they threw in these like Sour Patch or gummy bears or Twizzlers or whatnot along with it too, all for $4. And I thought that 4 to 5. I mean, some were a little more expensive, but $4 to $6, starting at $4 to $6. You ever seen this before, Mikey?
I have never seen it, but it's genius.
Strong.
It's not good for our industry at all, but yeah, that's pretty genius on the account for doing that. Wow.
That was unreal. Yeah, so they bundled up, they broke case of sodas open, they put it in a 16-ounce plastic glass with a cup, put a plastic cup with a straw and a top, and then threw in an airline liquor bottle or two, and then some candy on top of it. So, I mean, I thought that was hilarious.
And yeah, highly profitable too if they could pull that out. I mean, less than $1, I'm sure, maybe $1.50 all in with the candy and everything else. Their cost is turn around and sell it for $4 to $5.50.
Who says the people in Missouri are not innovative, right? Who says that they aren't innovative? Well, we're on site flying around talking to people about selling beer. One of the things that we love to talk about and focus on with wholesalers is GP per CE, so gross profit per CE. So one of the questions that we get all the time is, why does this become the focus of the sales team over volume or points of distribution pods? And why should this become a focus? So I want to start with sharing my perspective. And for me, it becomes a piece of data that has never been expressed to the team before. The sales team has more impact on than what they currently believe they can, or currently what they realize. And you actually have a lot of influence out of this. And I think that's what we kind of wanted to talk about today, Mikey.
Absolutely. By breaking it down GP per CE, we're basically looking at how profitable that package is when it's compared to apples by breaking it down CEs. If we don't have focus on how profitable a product is, we may be influencing the buyer or pushing the wrong package, even within the brand family. So GP per CE is an incredibly valuable point to look at.
So what's an example that you've seen recently on disparity inside the brand families?
Oh yeah, inside brand families, I see it all the time, actually. 16-ounce cans, right? For instance, 16-ounce cans, usually a value play by the supplier to give a good value package for that shopper. But I've seen disparities as far as within a craft brand, 6-pack bottles were $9 and some odd cents GP per CE. And then 16-ounce cans, I believe it was in a 4-pack, GP per CE was just a little over $3. So a huge difference there. And I know some of our accounts, we still want to have that package in there to have our pod count up, our multiple distribution up. but we don't have to drive the shopper to that package. We can shift our focus on the 6-pack, making sure that that's what they're going to grab. I saw another one this week too, even on the soda side. 6-pack bottles of soda. I believe one was an 8-ounce 6-pack. GP per CE on that was right around $10. And there was the 20-ounce 6-pack. GP per CE on that was less than $2. So a huge disparity there. And when we're looking to focus display opportunity, end cap, anything like that, that would be the package that I would want to push. That's making myself and the company more money.
For sure. And so we've seen things in like economy brands, think Keystone, Natural, 30s, 15s, vastly different from each other. Also 24-ounce, 25-ounce cans, vastly different from the 30s and the 15s. And we're talking about anywhere between $2 to $3. So that could be 40% to 60% more profitable versus the 30 packs, the 24s or the single serves, all the way to 10 to 15%. And when I talk about this, where a rep, it's not about stopping selling for 30s or stopping selling the 15s over the suits or over a 24-ounce can. It's about influence and getting shoppers' attention. And if we move the needle by 3 to 5% between one or another, we can actually generate a lot of incremental profits. This is how we kind of control this, and why we want to make this part of the focus with the sales reps, is that we can move the needle around creatively by putting, not only being salespeople where we're actually selling product and taking orders and managing inventory, but we're also doing the marketing side. What we're choosing to put on display, what we're choosing to focus with a cooler sticker. This week, there was an import brand, very large import brand, that was $1 difference, 12-pack can versus 12-pack bottle. And, for $1 and the velocity of the two is identical in most stores, why wouldn't you want to focus on the 12 bottle from a influencing marketing standpoint? That should be on display. That should be on the end cap. That should be the cooler sticker item, because that's going to incrementally drive another dollar in profit for the sales reps. And we just have more control over this than what we give ourselves credit for. And that's why I like bringing it. Every rep understands volume and velocity. It's kind of been ingrained into our bodies over time. It's basically what we focused on for the last, exclusively for the last 100 years, beer distribution and the beer industry. And then there's pods, points of distribution. If I make the product available, I put it in the right spot, I could potentially make some money on it. That makes sense too. And then the third leg of the stool now, more of a nuanced perspective is, what's the profitability of each package? If I can start to interpret the profitability of each package, I can actually influence out more outcomes than just velocity and just odds and what I place and how I focus on it. We saw one rep at a convenience store, Mikey, that same import brand, they had a 24-pack can on the end cap. It was a nice end cap, nice profitable stuff in value and also in premium core category, and then the import category. But they were doing the suits instead of 212 bottles. And, we exposed the reps as we were on site doing training, they'll start learning how to use this thing. It was like, okay. It's like an epiphany moment. Like, I get what we're getting. Like, let that shopper go find the suits. It's a big package. Let's use it strategically in the beer cave where it should be. On this end cap, where we're trying to influence incremental buys. What else do you call them? I always forget what the incremental purchases, but
I don't know where you're going for there.
where they just grab, where somebody just impulse buys.
Impulse buying, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, you talk about impulse buys. How do we get those impulse buy out of items done, even intra brand? So we're put that item on end cap of the 212 bottle. We showed them profit disparity, which was like 70 cents between the suits and the 212 bottles. And it was like, boom, light bulb went on. So it's fun to watch. We get a lot of questions too, Mikey. Why not show the raw GP? Like, why not show the difference in raw GP?
Raw GP would definitely lead you down the wrong path if you're not looking at CE equivalent, right? I mean, I guess a great example of that is looking at raw GP of a half barrel versus looking at raw GP of a 6-barrel. The 6-barrel is not going to look as appealing as it does when you break it down GP per CE. Most cases, I've seen it everywhere from double GP per CE, 6s versus halves. I think the smallest gap that I've seen is a $4 difference. So $4 more GP per CE in a 6 barrel, which means basically if we were looking at it raw, to me it would look like the half barrel is more profitable. But when you look at a GP per CE, when I sell in the 3 6s, I'm making more. We talk about this a lot when I'm on site, where if we're pitching a new brand and we want to come in and try something, I don't want to lead with a half. I want to lead with a 6. There's more profitability in there. We're not tied to a whole half barrel if it doesn't work. And if it does work, most of the time the account will reorder the 6. They love the space saving opportunity. They love just you're turning it more, you're going to get fresher beer. And ultimately the distributor's making more money because we're selling a higher profitable package even within the brand family.
Hey, you've run operations before. Do you ever get worried about, I see some clients get a little worried about, hey, if we start selling a bunch of 6 barrels, is that profitable per delivery to sell a bunch of 6 barrels over a bunch of half barrels? And like, if we change our mix from selling more 6s versus halves, Bub, does that make sense? Does that not make sense? To me, I never got too much into the weeds on that, kind of worrisome about it. Our market and a lot of markets out there have gone to a lot of 6s because of the mix of high-end craft on draft, where it's easy to turn, fresher product. But also, we have not, as an industry, incrementally grown the square footage of cooler space at retail. But we have incrementally created all this complexity and all this creative process at the retail store with tap handles. So if you go from having 6 to now having 12, you have to change your mix on size because you haven't built a bigger keg cooler at the store.
Yeah.
So we kind of dealt with this too. But do you have any concerns as an operations guy of like, if I'm dropping off a bunch of 6s versus a bunch of halves, that's more work or labor or problems there?
Yeah. I get this question a lot when I'm out on sites and we identify the GP per CE difference halves versus 6 barrels. And then they always ask, well, what is leadership going to think? What if I start ordering a ton more 6s and not halves? What is leadership going to think about this? And my ultimate answer is leadership's going to love it. We're selling a more profitable package within that group. Now, operationally, there has to be communications about some of the shifts. We'll note for forecasting, we'll have to catch up on the forecasting end of things. But operationally, delivery side, if I put on my operation manager hat, I love it. I'm saving guys' backs, right? I'm not having them pull a half barrel out of that truck. 6 barrels are much lighter, easier to maintain. Yeah, we're moving 3 versus 1, but I would rather break up that 165-pound half barrel 3 times than have to do it 1 time, especially going up and down stairs. So operationally, I think it's a good thing as well, too.
The market's moved in that direction, like I said, where the square footage of retail cooler space has not grown. When we've got Norm at the Lakeview Lounge that went from 4 taps to 12 and hasn't expanded. He's not going to expand his cooler space by any stretch. And most retailers are not. That is unprofitable space for them to just make it bigger, just to make it bigger. So they've got to stack. They want to multiply their draft selections. They've got to stack. They've got to do all that. We've seen all this happen. So cool stuff. That's why we focus on GP per CE. You can make better impacts. You can actually move the needle and premiumize it. From our operation, that we ran together, Mikey, we never grew profits, even through price increases. Like, we just could never figure it out. I never knew why. It was always something that was like, we were supposed to be growing raw dollars, but we never really figured it out. Once we started focusing on GP per CE, we genuinely did figure it out. We genuinely started driving those price increases and that premiumization opportunity to the bottom line. And that's why I became obsessed with it. It is an obsession with this data point and talking about it and sharing it with people, because it becomes a very powerful tool that gives more nuance to the reps and to our teams to understand how to run the business and how to actually make some money for us as wholesalers. So, and it's also aligned with retail, right, Mikey? I mean, you're premiumizing because retail is making basically a stack markup or margin on a certain package type. So if we're moving or a certain brand, so if we're moving to a higher profitable item day in and day out, and the retailer is making a stack 22 or 27% markup or margin, and we're growing that register ring for the retailer, that's good for them too. So it is aligned with our client, with our customers on it as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. And when they realize that we're out there trying to grow their business on the dollar side as well, and not just shoving every package in their cooler just to have the space, that goes a long way. You know, when we're asking for things too, they're going to recognize that we care for their business.
How much do you think retailers really pay attention to that?
I think the good ones pay attention to it a lot. Absolutely. Especially hands-on managers that are, you know, in and out of their stores, paying attention to everything. They're getting bombarded and asked all the time for space. I mean, we're managing our own space and telling the retailer the changes that we're making to manage our own space to make sure that we have the velocity. You know, we're not just sitting there and collecting dust and swapping out for outdated beer. I believe that goes a long way.
Yeah. I feel like it goes a long way at those the stores that move the needle. You know, you're always going to have those operators that are those retail operators that aren't super focused on moving the needle, or they kind of have their own opinion about how big their store could be or couldn't be. Those top performers, the top 20% of your retail outlets that really move probably, 40, 50, 60% of your volume, those are the folks that are pay attention to stuff like that. And these are the folks that really move the needle on record. Like, we know who those are in our market. People who are really paying attention to driving. Those were the people that were moving the profitability line for us and for themselves too. So moving on, any other industry insights you saw this week while we were on site, Mikey?
I believe we talked about it last week too, but 19.2 is still alive and well. I saw some great distribution 19.2s. We saw some great numbers in the volume because of that. I saw some 19.2s even out of the singles door, which is great, right? If we're looking for that impulse buy like we were talking about earlier, we're looking for that impulse buy
out of the cooler.
Yeah. So in beer caves, you walk into a beer cave and there's a rack or something in there, just grabbing that impulse buy to where that shopper may not pop into the beer cave and grab one. So saw a lot of that. Obviously, lots of RTDs, a very popular tea and vodka, just making their way to not only Michigan, my home state, but also the state that I was in this week. So I see that grabbing some legs for sure. What about you? What did you see out there? Besides made cocktails, I love that.
Yeah, the cocktail thing is what I saw for that. I only saw it once, and I didn't see it again. I've only seen it once. I didn't see it again. That was fun for me to kind of see because, like I said, I'd never seen anybody do anything like that before. I've heard about like the taped vodka bottle or the taped airline bottles and stuff, but I'd never seen that repurposed, repackaged.
Yeah, that's great.
Like that. I saw a bait shop take all their 50 mLs and put them on to like nut storage racks where everything comes in a nice little Tupperware.
Oh yeah. Yep.
This guy brought in a whole rack as an end cap, or he's an independent convenience store, and then built it right into his end cap, and then put all his 50 mLs in there, and you could just pull them out, push them back in, and pull them out, push them back in, and grab what you want. It's pretty organized.
That's great.
It was very, very, very organized. So, well, cool. Other things, Mikey, that we saw or heard about this week. So, federal prosecutors charged 8 in a series of beer heists in the Northeast rail yards distribution centers. This didn't get a lot of coverage nationally, but 8 men have been charged with stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of beer, mostly imported from Mexico, and from must be Modelo and Corona. I mean, it has to be, right? From rail yards and storage facilities in the Northeast, in what federal authorities described as a Wild West multi-year crime spree. This is from the USA Today. How funny is that?
It's hilarious. Is this why imports are doing so well? They're all
in this realm, it'd be imports are doing poorly because it's that like you're not really tracking the shipments. It's kind of like black market. You can track the imports through the TTB, but then you wouldn't track the retail sales.
Yeah.
Through BIR or through anything else. So beer theft enterprise, they committed this between July 2022 and March 2024. That is incredible. 2-year run.
My question, I think they drank all the beer or were they selling it on the market?
I would bet you that they sell it. See, I'm going to continue to kind of peruse this and see. They had to have sold it. least one of the truck members would drive a vehicle, which was often a U-Haul box truck. They didn't even fill with closed cases of stolen beer. After arriving at the targets, men would cut the locks, cut the hole in the fencing. The stolen beer would be transported to the Bronx, where it was inspected and then made available for sale. So yes, seller.
Quite the operation going there.
Quite the operation for sure. 100%.
I wonder if they were picking through the trailer based on GP per CE so they can maximize their profits.
I don't know. I mean, do they need to maximize their profits when it's stolen?
It's 100% profit, but still, what they can mark up more on the street.
It's synthetic. It's synthetic, pure profit.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, that's incredible. I mean, really, if you think about it, like only in New York or LA or one of these big markets could you really get away with this. Like any beer distributor in a small market would start asking questions like, where did you get all this beer from?
Yeah,
Overnight.
absolutely.
But you take a market like New York with all those small bodegas, and you've got the deliveries come and go, and the gas operators are probably buying product from other licensees already, anyways, whether that's legal or not. It just kind of gets buried and all gets worked out in a wash. So fascinating, very cool. Another good episode, maybe a little bit shorter one today, but good stuff. Well, good stuff. Thanks for listening, folks. I hope you're enjoying this, and we will be back with another episode soon. Cheers.
Cheers.